How can you improve your own mind to better prepare yourself to run a game of Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or Starfinder or Bounty Hunter or whatever role-playing system you want to play? How can you make your little grey cells work just a little bit harder and faster for you so your game runs more smoothly the next time you GM? Well, this is what I do. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM. My name is Guy, and today we are looking at how to improve your mental space, how to improve yourself so that you can game in a better way as a GM, in an easier way, in a more dynamic kind of way. How can you free your mind? I know this sounds very esoteric, and if you haven't watched last week's video, a very brief recap is, well, it's all about bringing everything into alignment. And the most important thing is that you can practice it and put it into play. This doesn't require you to have some kind of amazing Matthew Mercer gene that allows you to tell these complicated stories with accents and all that kind of stuff. This is good old-fashioned practical stuff which you can put into play. And where does this come from? Well, I have a Kickstarter running at the moment, and that's for this book here, A Practical Guide to Becoming a Great GM. And this book is the embodiment of all of my videos over the last 4 or 5 years and looks at it in lots of depth with examples, with tasks for you to do. All of that is built into the book. Kickstarter is currently running. Now, why do we want to put effort into becoming a better GM? Why do we want to improve our mental faculties? Well, a lot of times, a lot of things I hear from people is, it's such a burden being a GM. I panic, I freeze, I get mental block. I'm worried that my players are going to... There's all of this anxiety that starts to present itself to us as we start playing the game. Then there's all the burden and all of the pressure of having the players ask you for rules decisions, asking you to interact with things that you didn't plan for. All of that just applies more and more and more pressure to you. And after a while, at least this is what I've been hearing, people get tired of doing it, or they never start doing it because it's just too much. So we need to prepare ourselves mentally to know that we are in a good place, that we are in a strong place to be able to resist all of that kind of pressure. How do we do that? Well, to begin with, we make sure that we have a nice set of dice. And this video is sponsored by Easy Roller Dice. They do make beautiful, beautiful dice. This is their brass set, which you can find links for down below. Big thanks to Easy Roller Dice. They've sponsored this channel for years because we love their dice. So start with a clean slate. Step back from everything that you have known about role-playing, about GMing. Step away. If you are a novice GM, put that book down. That's the Dungeon Master's Guide or the rule book of whatever role-playing system you're playing. I'm referring to not the practical guide, which you should have in hand. You don't have to have that in hand. I'm being facetious. Step back and look at what it is that you need to develop about yourself to be prepared to be a great GM. You might not know what those are. So, very briefly, what those are is imagination. You need to build up your imagination. And I know this sounds trite. It's like, well, everyone has an imagination. Yes, but do you know how your imagination works? Do you know how to activate your imagination when you need it as opposed to just going blank? I've done a whole bunch of videos on how to do this, but I will give you some more advice later on in the video on a surface level on how to do this. We need to activate our imaginations. We need to give ourselves permission to have fun. And I cannot stress this enough, folks. I get so upset when I hear people saying, oh, I was afraid to do this because my friends might laugh at me, or my friends might think that's stupid. Well, then, to be perfectly honest with you, your friends. They're not your friends if they're not supporting you, okay? They need to support you. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so you need to give yourself permission to have fun. You are the GM. You are not this service provider. No one has paid you money to run this game unless you're a professional GM, in which case stop your whining and dance, monkey. The other idea is that you need to enjoy playing the game. And if you're not, then you're not playing it right, or you're not playing with the right people. So it's about setting up your mindset that you are the most important person at the table, not any of your friends, not any of your players, not anyone watching you. It is you who is the most important person at that table. If you are not there, the players can do nothing but sit there and exchange dice. That's all they can do. They can't actually play. So you are the one who has all of the power to determine how you should run your game. Don't let others do that for you. Again, I digress. Okay? You also need to understand what you are like as a GM. We all have different approaches to GMing. There are dozens of them. I think I have identified sort of 9 main ones that we tend to fall into. You need to identify what type of GM you are and understand what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what are the things that allow you to really shine versus the things that cause you stress, that cause you to fall apart. If you are not a good GM at running very serious, dark games where everything is morbid and horrific, I can't do that. As a GM, I physically cannot do that. I love slightly comedic games. There is nothing more dramatic than a tragic death followed by a piece of comedy. That's me. I cannot change. I can't do noir unless it's noir comedy. I like having fun, and I like telling jokes and making stupid puns and tropes and dad jokes and all that kind of stuff. That's what I like. And if you don't like that, don't sit at my table. Yes, some of my friends go, oh, I don't like your games. Good. Bye. That's their choice. They should be happy playing a game, but you should be happy too. Do you see what I'm driving at here? So we need to understand that, and then we also need to understand the type of game that we like to play. So what do we like as a GM? What do we like? What do we like? What are we like? What all of that about the game, and then we need to set up our actual game space. What ideas, what themes, what notions are interesting to you, and that make you kind of go, oh, I really want to do that. Maybe you want to do a giant heroic game where everyone's riding dragons and fighting in the sky. That sounds amazing. That sounds awesome. But if your players don't want to do that, get new players. Find a different group, because if you are being forced to run games in a space that you are not engaged with, it is going to be a long, hard slog. I have been there. I have been the spotty teenager who was trying to appease his friends because they were my only friends and I lived in a little town and we didn't have the internet. We used to walk 15 miles a day just to get to the telephone. All that rubbish. I've been there and I know what it's like because I also had friends who wanted to play very specific type of games in a very specific type of way, and sometimes that clashed with me. And I just let them abuse me because I said, okay, I want my friends to be happy. I want to play D&D, but I have to do another dungeon crawler, which I find personally, mentally very, very dull. But they loved it. So I had to do it again and again and again and again. And it killed my soul. It really did. So when we then take all of this and we say, okay, so we need to prepare ourselves. We need to understand ourselves. We need to understand what we like. We need to understand what we want. And then we need to understand in what space can we give that to ourselves. Those are the spaces that we need to work in. 3 of those are easy. What do you like? Write it down. I like these kinds of games. Go as in-depth as you possibly can. What type of GM are you? Figure out what is your style. I know it can be tricky to go, well, what's my style? And I look at it and I go, I know what my style is. My style is very much a case of it's going to be dramatic, it's going to be comedic, it's going to be tragic, it's going to be grim, it's going to be dark, it's going to be light. Mine is an emotional roller coaster. I love those, where it's big wins, big losses, tragic. I like all of those emotions to be thrown into my game. I don't like sedate normal games. I know my games are chaotic. I like to have my players win a victory, and then an entire city gets destroyed in a battle because I want the players to move slightly further north. My games are chaotic. I know that. That's the kind of GM I am, but my games are also very much about the player's story. I want to see where the players go. I want to see how the players interact. So my NPC villains are big and bold or conniving and subtle, but I also want them to lose to the players. So I make them as devious and as twisted and as horrific as I can, so my players fight against them. But I know in the back of my mind I'm rooting for my player characters to win, and I am dedicated to trying to find ways to ensure that that happens. So that is what I am. Those are the kind of games I like. You understand how you like to run your game and how and what type of game you like and what world space you like, you will be in such a strong space. I know it sounds like, I know all that, but do you really know that? So your task, jot down those things. What do you like as a GM? What kinds of games do you like playing? And what kind of world spaces, what kind of environments do you like playing in? Once you've got all of those things, then step back and say, okay, I need to develop myself mentally to exploring those different areas, to looking at aspects of those different areas, doing some research, watching videos on this channel. I've done videos on all of this stuff already. Understanding how that affects you and looking at those parameters and then saying, okay, my imagination, I have 4 aspects of my imagination. This is very quickly, folks. I have research, I have experience, I have inspiration, and then I have freeform association. Research. If you like to run gritty games set in a medieval environment, go and read books or watch documentaries on the medieval time period. It will help you tremendously. If you are someone who likes to have games that are really kind of real and stuff, go for a walk in the woods, go for a hike in the mountains, get out there, do something about it, experience life, ask people questions. If you have relatives who fought in wars, ask them questions. Just build your experience up in terms of what it was really like. And of course, freeform association is where you are linking different things together. Just watch people walking by in the traffic and look at their shoes, look at their belt, look at their watch. If they're wearing one, what does this say about me right now? It's a Fitbit, so it says, oh, he's trying to take his health seriously. Is he going to actually do it or not? Well, let's watch for 6 months and see if this thing is still on there, or if after a week it's gone into the drawer along with all of the other gadgets that supposedly help with life. Those are 2 possibilities. The other one is that I'm wearing this because it's not actually a Fitbit, but it's an international communicator. Beam me up, Scotty. Nah, okay, well, there goes that theory. The idea is that you link all of these different things together and you tell a story about that character, about that person. You don't have to know the real story about it. It just helps to develop your imagination. Then you use that, you apply it to those different spheres that you've been looking at, and you go, aha, these are my games, this is my style, this is what I want to play in, and then you stick to it for a while. Master it, learn about it, practice it again and again and again until your players go, okay, we get it, you really like Victorian romance novels set in Cairo. We're kind of done having the mummy chase sequences happening, although it wasn't Victorian technically. We're kind of over that. Can we move on, please? Yes, we can now actually move on. So that's my advice to you today in terms of getting your mind prepped and ready. Take charge of the game, because that's your job, but take charge of yourself in that game first. Until next week, a massive thank you to my Patreons who support and make this channel possible. A big shout out to Easy Roller Dice for giving me these amazing dice. Thank you so very much. And all of the links down below. Final reminder, just because you're still here and I love you, have a look at the Kickstarter, the practical guide to becoming a great GM, link down below. And that's me done, and you have happy gaming.